Alright, Shabbos, say good morning. Another beautiful, beautiful daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Lamites. We're actually Meretz Hashem V'Shatov Mislachas, going to finish in the fourth parak of Sanhedrin, but we are picking up on Lamed Ches Amud Beis 38b, and specifically we are picking up at Amar Hahu Mina L'Rav Idis. Actually, Amar Rav Nachman. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 lines up from the bottom. Lamed Ches Amud Beis 38b. Last two words on the line. So remember again, we're continuing on the theme that was introduced on Amud Aleph on yesterday's daf. Avda mala hashiv la apikoris. That know what to respond to an apikoris. That if somebody who's a heretic comes and confronts you with some type of warped understanding or interpretation of the Torah, so a Jew has to know how to answer that. You have to know how to answer it in order to go ahead and be solid in your beliefs. You have to know how to defend your beliefs. So these are just continued stories on that same motif. Amar Rav Nachman, Hayman diyoda lahadure leminim kirat idis. Anyone who knows how to answer heretics like Rav Idis, lahadar, then you should answer. V'ilo, lo lahadar. But if you're not as proficient as Rav Idis, then you shouldn't get involved. Shabbos has another interesting idea, which is, don't get involved in answering up the heretics unless you mamish know your stuff. Because there's one thing I would say, if you've ever had these what's the right word? I was going to say confrontations, not confrontations, interactions with door-to-door missionaries. So the one thing you have to give them incredible credit for, two things, is number one, they're passionate, and number two, they know their stuff. Now, it's wrong, meaning we believe it's wrong, but you have to be able to enter into a meaningful dialogue with, meaning if you're going to engage, then know how to engage. If you don't know like Rav Idis, then don't get involved. The Gemara gives an example. There was a particular heretic who once said to Rav Idis, Ksiv, ve'al Moshe amar alei el Hashem. So, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, the Pasuk says, and to Moshe God said, rise to God, or ascend to God. Now what the min was trying to do was to show that what? You see, there are two deities. There's the one who's speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the one who's speaking to Moshe, and the one who's speaking to Moshe says, Moshe, you should go up to God, you should go up to Hashem, as if the speaker is one deity, and Hashem is one deity. So the Gemara should have just said, ascend to me. Amar Lei, to which Rav Idis said, Zeh Metatron sheshmo kishem Rabo. This refers to Metatron, the Malach Metatron, whose name, Metatron's name, is like HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, sometimes the Malach Metatron is literally Kiviyachol called HaKadosh Baruch Hu or Hashem as well. Tichsev Kishmi B'Kirbo. Because when referring to Metatron, the pasuk says, because my name, God is saying, Hashem is saying, my name is in Metatron. If that's the case, why don't we worship Metatron as well? Why don't we just worship Metatron as well? Ksiv al Tamerbo, al Tamirenabo. Because the pasuk says we may not exchange HaKadosh Baruch Hu for any other deity, even for Metatron. Im Kain lo yisal peshechem lamali. So if that's the case, why does the pasuk need to say that Metatron will not go ahead and forgive your sins? Obviously, if you can't pray to Metatron and you can't supplicate to Metatron, so Metatron is not going to forgive my sins. To which the Gemara says, Amarlei, Rav Idi responded, Heminusa bi'adan da'afilu be'parvanka nami lo kabline. That Rav will say, as great as Metatron is, Klal Yisrael wouldn't even accept Metatron as a messenger of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Dichsiv, Vayomer Elav, Im Ein Panecha Holchin. Remember again, is after the Chet Egel, where the Rebbe Shalom says, I'm not going to lead you myself. Instead, I'm going to send you one of my messengers, one of my malach. My malach is going to, and the malach he was referring to was Metatron, whose name, again, Metatron has the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu within him, and yet Klal Yisrael says, no thank you. If we can't have you, then we don't want anyone, even Metatron. So the Gemara says the following: the pasuk says, "Vashem himtir al stom va'al amora gafris va'ish me'is Hashem." The pasuk says, and Hashem caused it to rain down on Stom and Amora. So gafris va'ish, literally fire and sulfur. Fire and sulfur. So why does it say me'is Hashem? It should say me'ito, from him. In other words, God is already mentioned in the pasuk. You don't have to say Hashem again. Amarle, listen to this. Amarle Ahukubes. You must remember, this is a heretic, was engaging Rabbi Yishmael. So Amarle Ahukubes. So there was a particular launderer. Like Mamish is not like a metaphor for like a money launderer. This means he was a literal launderer. He was a koves. So there was this guy, this simple Jew, who overheard this exchange. He says, Rabbi Yishmael, Shafke, I'm the Mahadran Alei. I got this. Let me handle this guy. Dichsiv, the Gemara says, Dichsiv, Vayomer Lemech L'Nashav, Adav Etzila, Shma'an Koli Nishei Lemech. The pasuk says, it will say when Lemech was talking to his wives. So it says, Vayomer Lemech L'Nashav, Lemech said to his wives, Adav Etzila, Shma'an Koli Nishei Lemech. Listen to my voice, the wives of Lemech. Nishai, why does it say wives of Lemech? It should have just said what? Listen to me, my wives. So the Gemara says, Ella, mishtaikra hachi, hachanami mishtaikra hachi. To which the Kove said, listen, sometimes that's just how the pasuk speaks. Sometimes again, the speaker or the speaker or the main character of the pasuk will sometimes refer to himself as third person. It's true by a human being and it's true by HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. Amarle Menalacha. So Rabbi Shmuel is very impressed. He says to the launderer, "Nu, where do you know this from? To which the man responded, Mi pirke Rabbi Meir Shmieli. I heard it in Shir." Shabbos said the importance of paying attention in Shir. Right? I heard it in Shir, and I was able to go ahead and take it with me and use it somewhere else. Listen to this. Din Rabbi Yochanan Kevadar Shai Meir B'Pirkei. This is actually quite beautiful. When Rabbi Meir would give Shir, this is amazing. It's also amazing from just a teaching perspective. He would split Shir into 3 parts. He said he would do the following. Darish Tilsa Shmaita. He would do 1/3 Halacha. Tilsa Agarata. 1/3 Agarata. Tilsa Masli. 1/3 mashalim, parables, which Shabbos say is an incredible yisod, because you see that to be made understood that in order to keep the attention of individuals, again, things haven't changed all that much. It's hard sometimes to remain engaged when it's just straight halacha or it's just, straight details. So Rabbi Meir, and who is Rabbi Meir speaking to? Rabbi Meir is speaking to everybody, right? 1/3 halacha, 1/3 mashalim, 1/3 agarata. Incredible. Rabbi Yochanan, Gimel meos mashalos shualim hayla Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yochanan said Rabbi Meir had 300 fox parables. I will say, there's a lot of parables, a lot of mashalim in Yiddishkeit that have to deal with the fox. Right? The fox representing many different things. Sometimes representing the sly Yetzer Hara, sometimes representing the Umos Olam, the nations of the world, but always representing those who are trying to undermine and undercut. Rabbi Meir had 300 fox mashalim. Va'anu ein lana ela shalosh. We only have 3. We have 3 remaining ones from Rabbi Meir. Top of Lamed Tes Rabbosai. Those 3 mashalim, which we're going to see, the 3 mashalim are really one mashal. They're 3 parts of one mashal, are based on the following 3 psukim. Number 1, top of Lamed Tes, Avos yochlu bosar v'shinei banim tekahena. The fathers will eat sour grapes, and literally the teeth of the sons will be affected. Ma'aznei tzedek va'avnei tzedek. You should have just weights and measures. And mitzara nechlatz vayavo rash. Tzadik mitzara nechlatz vayavo rasha tachtav. The tzadik will be saved ultimately again from tsar, and the rasha will take his place. So we'll say, so what's the mashal? Take a look at Rashi. This is why I wanted to start a few minutes early, because there's so much to do today. Take a look at this Rashi. Listen to this. Top Rashi. Avos yochlu bosar. Mashal hu. This is the mashal. I will say. Sherima hashua las hazev likanis lachatra Yehudim berev Shabbos. There was once a story of a fox who convinced a wolf to enter into the Jewish courtyard on Erev Shabbos. Uletakein imohem tzarchei suda v'yochal imohem b'Shabbos. So what did the fox tell the wolf? Listen, it's a mefurish Gemara. Kol mi shetarach be'erev Shabbos yochal b'Shabbos. So wolf, here's what you need to do: go into the Jewish courtyard, offer your assistance to help them prepare for Shabbos, and they will give you Shabbos food. They will allow you to eat with them on Shabbos. So what happens? When the wolf came into the courtyard, so what happens? They attacked the wolf. The wolf walked in, and the residents of the courtyard attacked the wolf. The wolf, badly beaten and bruised, comes back. He comes back to kill the fox. Amar lo hilkucha ela b'shvil avicha shepam achas hischil esayin besuda va'achal es kol nachas tov. So the fox says to the wolf, you were only beaten up because of your father. Because one time your father offered to help the Jews set up for Shabbos, and instead of helping them set up, he ended up eating all of the food. Because of my father's actions, I should be beaten. Amar Lohain, to which the fox said, yes. Ha'avos yochlu basar v'shine banim tikahena. Ultimately, again, so we'll say the first part of the mashal was that sometimes the children are impacted by the deeds or the misdeeds of the father. That's lesson 1. Next. Aval bo'imi, but the mashal goes on. Aval bo'imi ve'er'ech makom lecho v'lisboa. But the fox says to the wolf, come with me, and I'll show you a place where you could eat, you could be satiated. Balo ala be'er, va'al svasa mutal eats, va'acheva moshchav alav, u'b'shnei rashi acheva shnei dalim kshurim. So what happens? The fox brings the wolf to a well, and there's a board across the well that's supporting a pulley system with 2 buckets. What happens? Nichnas hashol b'dliya elyon, v'hichbid v'yared lamata, v'daliya tachton ala. Amar lo azev, lama atar nichnas l'sham. Amar lo yesh kan basar u'gvina lecha v'lisboa. So the fox goes in. Wolf cries down to the fox, why did you go into the well? To which the fox responds, there's plenty of food in here. So the wolf says, let me see. So the fox shows the wolf the reflection of the moon in the water, which looks like a wheel of cheese. So he tries to pretend that there's cheese down here in the well. So so to which the wolf says, how should I get down there? So what happens? The wolf goes in, and of course because of the pulley system, when the wolf goes down, the fox comes up. The wolf realizes there's no food down there. How do I get back up? Amarlo tzadik nitzar nechlatz v'yavo rasha tachtav lokach ksiv me'aznei tzedek nebach. Obviously, again, I'm the tzaddik, you're the rasha, you're in trouble. I've been saved from the well. Hatzlacha rabba. So we'll say, so these were the leftover mashalim. Rabbi had 300 such fox mashalim. These are the 3 that we have. And again, we'll say each of these mashalim in and of themselves, incredibly profound stories. Message number 1, that we have to be careful with our actions, because not only do they impact us, but they impact the next generation. Message number 2 is don't get fooled by the reflection of the water. Sometimes things look a certain way, but you have to be mevarer what it is you're doing in life, how you're living, the decisions you make to make sure you're not just following some reflection of the moon in the water and thinking that it's cheese. And number 3, that sometimes, ultimately, again, this part of the mashal, the Maharsha brings down is a bit deficient in Rashi. There must be more. But the third part of the mashal is ultimately, again, that the scales of justice are always equaled out. And at the end of the day, the Ribono Shel Olam will always right the scale between the tzaddikim and the Risha. Good. Weiter. Amrli Kofar Rabbi Gamliel. Elohechem Ganafu. So there was a particular kofar, there was a particular heretic who said to Rabbi Gamliel, your God is a thief. Tichsiv, vayapal Hashem Elokim tardema al ha'adam vayashen. So what happens? The pasuk says that the Rimon Shal made Adam fall asleep, and then he took Adam's rib and he fashioned Chava. So the kofar said, your God is not a heretic, I'm sorry. Your God is a thief. Your God is a thief. He steals ribs. He steals ribs from sleeping people. Amrle Barte. So listen to this, Shabbos say. So his daughter, this is not Rabbi Gamliel's daughter. Bepashtos, this is the daughter of the heretic. So Amarle Barte, Shavke Da'ana Mahadran Ale. So the daughter said, Rabbi Gamliel, I got this. Let me answer him. Amarle, Tunuli Duchas Echad. So she said to her father, can you provide me with a judge? Duchas Echad means an upright judge. Amarle Lamalech. So she said to her, why do you need a judge? So listen to this, Rabbi say. She says, Listin Bo'o Alinu Halayla. Because last night the house was broken into. And what happens? V'notlu mimenu kiton shel kesef, v'nichu lanu kiton shel zav. The thieves came in, they stole our silver pitcher, and they left a gold one in its place. Amar Allah, to which the father responds to her, Ulavai sheyavo aleinu b'chol yom. Right? Halavai, we should have nothing, we should have break-ins like that every single night. So listen to this. V'lo yafa, so to which the girl responds, V'lo yafa hayalo la'adam arishon shenatlu mimenu tzela achos, v'nasnu lo shivcha l'shamsho. So the girl responds to her father, was it not good, ultimately again, was it not good for Adam Arishon to have a rib taken from him? The word choice over here is quite interesting. It's quite interesting. Let's say you have to understand something. This is a non-Jewish girl. This is a non-Jew. I take that back. I take that back because the Pashas Tekofer is Jewish. Let's say, again, there are different conceptions of marriage, and there are different conceptions of relationships, and there are different conceptions as to what people are supposed to get out of marriage. Who knows? It's very telling, by the way. You want to know how your children think about marriage? You want to know what your children's conception of marriage is based on? It's based on your marriage. Right? So who knows what this girl saw in her home, and who knows how her father treated her mother. But obviously the way she viewed a wife and a husband was a shifcha and the master. But whatever, we're not getting into that right now. In any event, the point that she was making to her father was what? The point that she was making was, it's true, God took a rib, but he gave Adam Harishon Chava. Amarla, Hachi Kamina, El Lishkale Behedja. To which the father responded, the Kofer says, I know Adam got a good deal. He gave a rib, got a wife. I got it. But why did it have to be done while Adam was sleeping? What was bothering the Kofer was, why does God have to come like furtively? Why does he have to come quietly, sneakily? Why can't he just take the rib from Adam while Adam is awake? Listen to this. Amarle, to which the girl responded, Aisuli umsa de bisra. So the girl said, can you bring me a raw slab of meat? A raw piece of meat. Aisula, they brought her the raw piece of meat. Osva tu sebachsha. Afiksa. So the way they used to roast meat is they would put the meat, they would cover the meat with like coals and ash, and they would roast it like that. So she took the piece of meat, she roasted it, and then after it was done, Amrle, echol mehai. She gives it to her father. She says, eat here. Amrla, mi'isali. He said, it's disgusting, meaning I saw that meat when it was raw, and even though now that it's cooked, it's unappetizing to me. Amrle, va'adam harishon nami, ihava shatlis bahadei, hava mi'isali. To which the girl responds, had Adam Harishon been awake while the rib was removed and the rib was fashioned into a human being, it could be that Adam Harishon might have been repulsed initially by his wife, in order ultimately, again, that Adam should only have feelings of attraction and feelings of connection towards his wife. HaKadosh Baruch Hu performed this process while Adam was asleep. Incredible. Listen to this, Rabbi said. This is actually a very moving Gemara. There was a particular kofer who said to Rabbi Gamliel, I know exactly what your God is doing. The Heichon Yosef, and where exactly he is. Although they delete the Heichon Yosef. I know exactly what your God is doing and where he is. Isnagid ve'isnach. Rabbi Gamliel sighed. Amrle my hype, which the Kofer said, why are you sighing? Amrle ben echad yeshli bekarche hayam, v'yeshli ga'aguim. Alav. Rabbi Gamliel says, I have a son who's overseas, and I have such ga'aguim, I have such a yearning to see him. I miss him. I haven't seen him in a long time, and I wish I have such a yearning to see him. Ba'ina de machves le'nehile. Can you show me, or can you tell me where he is? Show me where, you know everything. Show me where he is. Amar, miya dana heichamiu. How should I know? The Kofer says, how should I know where your son is? Amar le di'ika ba'ara lo yedana. Dika b'shemaya yada. So you're telling me you don't know where someone on this earth is, and yet you know that Rebbe Shalom who lives in the celestial sphere is? Good. Amalei Kofer Rabbi Gamliel. Ksir was I was just very touched by this Gemara because this Yisod Rabbi Gamliel has a son overseas and he doesn't know where he is. Such an incredible Yisod. You never know what a person has going on in life. Here Rabbi Gamliel is battling all of these Kofrim, battling all of these heretics. And yet there's a piece of very personal pain that obviously is on the inside, that who even know that he had a son overseas. But yet mamish, like in this obviously he was trying to disprove the Kofer, but in this incredible moment of vulnerability, he exposed, it's an incredible idea. Gemara goes weiter. Amalei Kofer Rabbi Gamliel. Ksiv, Mona Mispala Kochavim. Pasuk says that the Ribono Shel Olam counts the stars. My Rabuse. So the Kofer says, what's the big deal? I can also count the stars. Right? The stars 1, 2, 3. What's the big chap that God could count the stars? So the Gemara says, I see, so Rabbi Gamliel comes along. I see chuvshe shadinu ba'arbila. The kamahadlu. So Rabbi Gamliel filled up a basket filled with quinces, and he started shaking it around. And he said, Amalu minu. He said to the Kofer, why don't you count the quinces? Amarle ukmini. He says, if you hold the basket still, I'll be able to count them. Amarle rakia nami hachi. So the Gemara, rakia nami hachi adra. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Gamliel says, the heavens are also constantly moving. So if you can't go ahead and count the quinces in the basket when the basket's moving, chances are you can't count the stars either. Ikeda amri hachi amarle maneli kochvi. So to which an alternate version is that the Kofar said to Gamliel, I could count all of the stars. So Rabbi Gamliel said to the men, to the Kofar, tell me, how many teeth and how many molars do you have? Shada yadei lepune, the kamani lehu. So the guy puts his hands in his mouth and literally begins counting off his teeth. So Amalei diika bepumech lo yadat, diika berakia yadat. You don't know how many teeth you have in your mouth, right? So you're telling me now you know how many stars there are in the heavens? Amalei Kofar Rabbi Gamliel, Misha bara harim lo bara ruach. So there was another kofar. We'll say now whether all of this is like the same nudnik or it's multiple kofar. Harbe kofar yesh ba'olam. So maybe it's I don't know if it's the same guy or multiple people. So the Gemara says, say, by the way, you understand like sometimes how silly all of these statements are. Which is, I will say, another incredible yisod, which I think the Musar Haskell from this Gemara is that what don't you see one time? I know that's not good English, but what don't you see one time? You never see Rabbi Gamliel losing his cool. The idea is that sometimes it happens on occasion that a person may, by chance, have to deal with difficult people. It could happen. And the most important yesod when dealing with difficult people is don't let them get under your skin. Because the moment you let the person get under your skin and the moment you react in an abrasive way, you're done. You've lost in every. The greatness of this is so stupid. This is so stupid. Rabbi Gamliel is the head of Klal Yisrael. He needs to be dealing with these nudniks, and the answer is yes. And if you notice again, his response each and every time is measured, is polite. He responds. Incredible yisod. All right. In any event, the Gemara says the following. So the Kofar says Rabbi Gamliel, Misha bara harim lo bara ruach. The God who created the mountains didn't create the wind. Shneimar ki neyotze harim ubore ruach. Because we'll say the pasuk uses in Amos two different lashonos. There's yotzer harim, means he crafts the mountains, ubore, and creates the ruach. So the Kofar was trying to say, you see from here that since it's two different words, therefore again it must be two different creators as well. Elame'ata gabe adam dichsiv vayivra vayitzer hachanami misha barazeh lo barazeh. So maybe you're going to say by Adam Arishon also, since it says vayivra and vayitzer, so maybe again that means that two different gods created man as well. To which the Gemara says, here's the problem. Tefach al tefach yish ba'adam, yish bo ba'adam, ushnei nekavim yish bo, misha barazeh lo barazeh. The problem is, how would you then divide up man? Sometimes within man, you could have two orifices within a close proximity to each other. There's not a tefach that doesn't have something on the body. So Lamaisi, you're going to say that there's one God who created this, one God who created that. Shne'emar, so the Gemara says, Shne'emar, hanota ozen alo yishma, v'im yotzer ayin alo yobit, amrle'in, to which the Kofar said, yes, it could be that multiple gods created man as well. Amrlei ubishas misa kula nispaisu. So tell me, how is it that when man dies, all the body in its entirety shuts down? Are you telling me then that all the divine partners in the creation of man all agree that man should die at the same time? To which Rabbi Gamliel, therefore Rabbi Gamliel disproves the assertion of the Kofar that man was created by different gods. Amrlei hu amagusha la meimar. So there was a particular amagusha. We'll say amagusha is a sorcerer. So what happens? He said to Amimar, Mipalgach li'iloi duhormiz. The upper part of your body belongs to Hormiz. Hormiz, Rashi points out, was a shade. Mipalgach litasoi da'a Hormiz. The bottom part of your body, right from the middle to the bottom, is ruled by Ahormiz. Ahormiz means HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this sorcerer was saying the upper part of your body is ruled by a shade, the lower part of your body is ruled by God. Amalei imkain hechi shavik le Ahormiz lo Hormiz la avure maya ba'are. But if that's the case, then ultimately again, how does Ahormiz, the ruler over the lower part of the body, allow Hormiz, the ruler of the upper part of the body, to go ahead and allow liquid to pass through? In other words, everything that's ingested through the mouth, right, is excreted through the lower part of the body. So why is it that the ruler of the lower part of the body would allow that which is ingested by the upper part of the body to flow through it? So the Gemara says, Amalei Kesar Tanchum. So let's listen to this. This is amazing, another amazing Maisa. The Caesar said to Rabbi Tanchum, let's all become one nation. Let's become one united people. So what happens? Let's become one united people. Chat, so the Gemara says, L'chaye, so to which Rabbi Tanchum said, beautiful. Absolutely. They both say it's actually a good conversation. What the Caesar was actually alluding to, according to the Maharsha, was, listen, in the Messianic era, all the nations become united, so to speak. Let's become one united nation. Rabbi Tanchum says, sounds great. But here's the issue. We who are circumcised cannot become like you. Asan mahalisu v'havu kavasan. You who are not good morning, Mr. Schoenfeld. You who are not circumcised could become like us. Right? Rabbi Tanchum says, so listen to this. Amalei, to which the Caesar responds, Meimer Shapir Kamrat. You know what? You said good. You said good. However, Miu Kahachi Dezachi Lamalka L'Shajua Lebivar. But there's only one problem. Anyone who bests the Caesar, anyone who outsmarts the Caesar, has to be thrown into a den of lions. So shkoyach, excellent point, right? But now, again, anyone who, because it was considered to be an affront to best the Caesar, so Rabbi Tanchum, you're right, but because you're so right, you're going to get thrown into a den of lions. So what happens? They threw him into the den of lions, but the lions did not eat him. So we'll say there was a particular heretic who was so happy to see Rabbi Tanchum thrown into the den of lions. He says, here's the problem. The reason they didn't eat him is because you probably fed the animals lately. They're not hungry. So what did they do? They threw the heretic in there, and they ate the heretic. Right? So apparently the lions were hungry. Right? But again, it's just not Rabbi Tanchum. Amrisu kolbei asara shchinta sharia. You Jews say that wherever there are 10 Jews assembled, the Shechina rests its presence there. Sekama shchinta ika. I don't understand. How many Shechinas are there? That the Shechina could be every single place where there are 10 Jews. It doesn't make sense. To which the Gemara says, listen to this. So Rabbi Gamliel karye l'shameh. So Rabbi Gamliel called over the shamis of this particular kofer. Macha bei ba'aftaka. He hit the shamis in the neck. In other words, he struck him. Amalei, amai al shim shaba beisei the kofer. Why do you allow sunlight into the home of the kofer? Amalei shimsha akule alma necha. So the kofer says, "What are you talking?" Excuse me. The shamis said, "What?" The shamis said, "What are you talking about? The sun shines everywhere. The sun shines everywhere. I can't prevent all of the rays of the sun from entering into the home." To which Gamliel says, exactly. Umashimsha dechad min elef alfi rivo shamshi dikami kutshabrichu. The sun was just one of the many thousands of creations and servants before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Necha l'kulei alma, yet shines upon the entire world. Shchinta da Kodesh Baruch Hu alachas kama v'kama. Or the more so, the Shechina itself is able to shine, and in this case, be present all over the world as well. Amalei hahu mina l'Rebbe Avo. So there was a particular heretic who said to Rabbi Avo, Elokechem gachkon. Your God is like a badchan, like a gachkon. Your God is a jester. Meaning he makes fun of people. He makes fun of people. How so? So the Gemara says, Dekamali liYecheskel shchav al tzidcha asmali. Because first he says to the Navi Yecheskel, sleep on your left side. Uksiv v'shachafta al tzidcha yamani. Then he says to Yecheskel, sleep on your right side. So we'll say, so meaning he's saying your God makes fun of you. Why is he doing that to Yecheskel? As this exchange was occurring, Asahu Tamida, Amrale, my timer Dishriasa. So we'll say, as this min is having this conversation with Rabbi Avo, one of the Tamidim of Rabbi Avo comes along and says, Rabbi, why is it that we have Shemitah? Why do we have Shemitah? Amrale, Hashta Aminu Lechu Milsa Dishabila Tavas. So which Rabbi Avo responds, this is amazing. I'm going to give you one answer that answers both of the questions. The min's question as to why God is telling first Yecheskel, sleep on this side, sleep on that side, as well as the answer as to what the deeper meaning of Shemitah is. So listen to this. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Klal Yisrael, Zaru Sheish, I want you to work the land for 6 years. V'yashmitu Sheva, and I want you to observe a sabbatical year on the 7th. Kedei shetedu sha'aretz shelihi, in order that you should know that the land ultimately belongs to me. Okay, Ve'hein lo asukim. Rabbi say one of the reasons for Galus was because we did not properly observe Shemitah. Ela chatu v'galu. Instead, we sinned. We didn't observe Shemitah, and therefore we were exiled. Minhago shel olam basar v'dam shesar chalav medina. So the minhag olam is when it comes to an earthly king. If the kingdom rebelled against him, imach zarihu horiges kulan. If the king is cruel, he'll wipe out the entire kingdom. Imrachamanhu, if he's compassionate, horig chetzyan, he'll kill half of the kingdom. If he's truly compassionate, then miyasir hagedolim shem b'yisurin. Then what will he do? He'll afflict the great ones. He'll afflict, meaning he'll give afflictions to the leaders, representing that by punishing the leaders, that will atone ultimately again for the rest of the populace. Af kacha kodesh baruch hu. The Bible says so is the same with the Ribbon Shalom. Miyasir asicheskel kedei lamarek avonoseim shel Yisrael. Ultimately, again, the Ribbon Shalom was afflicting Yecheskel. This idea of sleep on the right, sleep on the left, making Yecheskel twist and turn, was Yisurim, was suffering for Yecheskel. For what purpose? Ultimately, to atone for Klal Yisrael, for the fact that they did not observe the Shmitos. So there was a particular min that said, your God is a Kohen. How do you know your God is a Kohen? V'yikhuli truma. Because the pasuk says, "V'yichuli truma," you should take from me truma. So you see, the God is a Kohen. Kikabri l'Moshe b'may tavel. So if that's the case, that Kadosh Baruch Hu was a Kohen, the Ribbon Shalom buried Moshe Rabbeinu himself. If Kadosh Baruch Hu was a Kohen, then that means he was tamei tumas meis. What mikvah did he use? Right? How did he purify himself? V'chitema b'maya. Maybe you'll say he immersed himself in water. V'haksiv mi madad b'sha'alom mayim. Could all the waters of the world be measured with the fist of God? In other words, there are no waters that could contain HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How did Ribbon Shalom immerse himself? Let's listen to this. Amar lei benura. It says Kadosh Baruch Hu immersed himself in fire. Benura tavel. He immersed in fire. D'chsiv ki nei Hashem ba'esh yavo. The Ribbon Shalom comes in fire. Misalka tvilusa benura. Can you have tvila in fire? Amar lei adraba. To which Rabbi Yavo responded, yes, of course. Adraba, ikar tfilusa benura. The actually primary immersion is in fire. D'chsiv b'chol asher lo yavo ba'ish ta'aviru b'mayim. It's only things ultimately again that cannot be purified in fire that ultimately are purified in water. Listen, obviously, Rabbi Yavo was just responding to the min, ultimately just to shut down his argument. But Rabbi Yavo is not lending credence because obviously that's not what the pasuk means. The yichuli truma is not talking about, it's from Parshas Truma. It's not talking about the truma that is a matnas geuna. That's talking about the trumos hamishkan. It's talking about the build of the mishkan. But nevertheless, Rabbi Yavo says another incredible yisod, which is even sometimes if a person is saying something nonsensical, sometimes kavod brios demands that you respond to the person, that you just give them an answer, that you give them the proper interpersonal derech eretz to at least close out the conversation. Incredible lessons in midos. So the Gemara goes weiter. Pasuk says, who is like Klal Yisrael, a singular nation in the world? Why is Klal Yisrael better than anyone else? You're a nation like every other nation. All of the nations are like nothing against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So ultimately, again, you see Klal Yisrael is reckoned like everyone else. Amrlei, to which Rabbi Avina responded, Medidacho ashida alon. Even your own prophets testified that we are unique. A reference to Bilam. Dichsiv amud beis. Dichsiv ubagoyim lo yischashav. Because also the pasuk ultimately says by Bilam that Klal Yisrael bagoyim, they will not be reckoned amongst the nations. Rabbi Elazar amiksiv. Rabbi Elazar contrasts psukim. It says on one hand, Tov Hashem l'kol. God is good to everyone who accepts Tov Hashem l'kovav. That Kadosh Baruch Hu is good for those. Kovav Rabbi say means for those who wait for Him or for those who pine for Him. So which one is it? Is God good to everyone, or is God just good to those who wait for Him or pine for Him? Mashallah, Adam sheish lo pardes. This can be compared to a person who has an orchard. Kishu mashke skulo. When he waters the orchard, he waters the whole thing. Ukishu oder ino oder elatovim shem. Rabbi say when he literally oder means to hoe. When he does extra work in the pardes, he only does the extra work for the trees or for the plants that are ultimately going to go ahead and really provide real fruit. So too again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good to everyone. So therefore he'll water the entire orchard. But the extra attention that he gives are only for those trees that truly yield fruit, which are those trees who yearn for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lefichach kol echad. So vayava harina b'machana. So we'll say we're transitioning now a little bit to the interesting story about the death of Achav. Remember again, Achav was in the after the death of Shlomo HaMelech, his son Rechavam becomes king. Rechavam follows the advice of his young, inexperienced advisors, and it ultimately leads to a split in Malchus Yisrael, becoming two kingdoms: Malchus Yisrael, Malchus Yehuda. Malchus Yehuda is still governed by Davidic kings. Malchus Yisrael originally was governed by a man by the name of Yeravam ben Nevat, who goes off started off as a tzaddik, but goes off the derech in a dramatically terrible way, and then is governed by a series of evil kings. One of the worst of them being Achav. So the pasuk over here says, "Vayav harina b'machane." This is after the death of Achav. After the death of Achav, there was Rina. There was rejoicing in the camp. Ba'avod rishaim Rina. Because when the wicked are killed, when the wicked are lost, then ultimately again there is singing and jubilation. Ba'avod Achav ben Amri Rina. When Achav ben Amri was killed, there was rejoicing. But does God rejoice over the downfall of the wicked? After all, Haksiv b'tseis lifnei achavotz v'omrim hodu la'Hashem kili olam chasdo v'omer Yonasan mipnei malo ne'emar b'hoda zu kitov lefi she'ina kodesh baruch hu samech b'mapalasan shorishayim. So we'll say ultimately again in the pasuk that discusses the downfall of the wicked, it says hodu la'Hashem Kili Olam Chazdo, but it doesn't say Kitov. It doesn't say it's good. Why? Because God does not rejoice on the downfall of the wicked. Remember, we'll say the HaKadosh Baruch Hu prefers much more to the downfall of the wicked, and that is that they do tshuva, right? That people change, that people reform themselves, that people turn themselves back. God doesn't want anyone to fail. God doesn't want anyone to fall. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu does address the Gemara says this beautiful Gemara. Don't Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman, Amar Rabbi Yonasan, Mai Dichsiv. What does it mean when the pasuk says they did not approach each other the entire night? It will say this is talking about when Klal Yisrael left Egypt. And remember again, this is right by Yam Suf. Klal Yisrael is getting to Yam Suf. They're right at the banks of the sea. They cannot proceed any farther. And what happens? There's the Eish, there's the fire between them and Mitzrayim. So they don't come close to each other the entire night. But also Shad, then say what happens? We know the rest of the story. HaKadosh Baruch Hu splits the sea, Klal Yisrael goes through, waters come down on Mitzrayim. But also Shah, when the Mitzrayim are drowning in the sea, Bikshu Malachi Hashares Lomar Shira. Ultimately, the Malachi Hasharis wanted to sing Shir to HaKadosh Baruch Hu over the death of the Mitzrayim. So Amar Lohan HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ma'as Yodai Tovim Bayam, Va'atem Omrim Shir. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, my creations are drowning in the sea, and you want to sing Shir. It's not upon Razul said. It's an incredible yisod. We haven't cornered the market on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Rebbe Shalom is the God of all humanity and loves all humanity. Does He have a unique relationship with us, with Klal Yisrael? Absolutely. But that unique relationship does not come at the expense of love for all of His creations. It's a very important yisod. And therefore, we might rejoice over the downfall of Rishaim, but the Rebbe Shalom has an incredible and profound sense of pain. Because when those Rishaim are killed, those Rishaim disappear or obliterated, those are His children. Those are His Shir. So the Malachim want to sing Shir. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, hu eino sas. It's true. God doesn't rejoice when the wicked perish. Aval achirim masis. But others do rejoice. Others do rejoice. Man does. Man who is oppressed does rejoice when his enemy is vanquished. Dekanami dechsev yosis v'lo ksev yosus shmamina. So Rabbi Yossi, you can even be medayik this in the pasuk. The Gemara says that it says yosis. Yosis is a reference ultimately again to others will rejoice, but it doesn't say yosus, which means the HaKadosh Baruch Hu rejoices. Good. Vazonos rach. So we'll say. So the pasuk over here. This is by the death of Achav. So the pasuk says, "Vayishtov as harechav al brecha shomron, vayaloku aklavim as demo." So as we'll see in just a moment, Achav was killed in battle. He was killed by actually, interestingly enough, a quote-unquote stray arrow. Obviously, there's no such thing as a stray arrow, but he was killed by a stray arrow. So the pasuk here discusses that his chariot was drenched in blood. His chariot was drenched in blood, and ultimately they bring his chariot to wash it off by the fountain, and the dogs were lapping up his blood. So the lashon that the pasuk uses is vazonos rachzu. They went ahead and they vazonos rachatzu. Literally, zonos are harlots bathed or washed. What does that mean? Amar Rabbi Elazar lemarik shtei chazionos. So zonos of Yerabosai is a shortened form of chazionos for visions. That in the death of Achav, two visions came together. Achaz shal Michayo, va'achaz shal Elio. One is the vision of Michayo, one is the vision of Elio. Michayo ksiv, imshov tashov b'shalom, lo diber Hashem. So the Navi Michayo says to Achav, if you come back from this battle, then right in peace. In other words, if you don't die in this battle, then God doesn't speak through me. Elio ksiv, b'makom asher lakaku aklavim es dam navos. And Elio prophesizes and he says, the same place where the dogs licked up the blood of Navos. Remember again, we know the story of Navos. Achav wanted Navos' property. He has Navos, actually. Zevel has Navos brought up on false charges. Navos is executed. Achav takes his property. The Navi prophesizes in the same place where the dogs licked the blood of Navos, they'll lick your blood as well. Rava Amar, V'ish Mashach Bekeshas L'Tumo. Nabos said, the Navi discusses how is Achav killed. There was just an archer, one of the enemy archers, just indiscriminately pulled back his bow. Vayake. And his arrow ended up hitting Achav. Rabbi Elazar Amar Lefitu. Oh, thank you. Rava Amar. No one ever misses a zonus mamish. Okay, good. Sorry, shuf mamish. I could skip a whole chapter. Good. So it says the Gemara. So Rava says zonos mamish. Rava says, no. The zonos of here, Abosai, is not chezionos, but rather it literally means zonos mamish. What does this mean? This is actually amazing. Achav ish mitzonan haya. So this is an interesting lashon. Achav was very cool. I will say that's not meant as a compliment. Rashi says mitzonan haya lo haya ohev tashmish. Apparently, he had like low testosterone or something, meaning he didn't really have a drive for intimacy. So what happened? This bothered his wife. Va'asa salo izevel shtei tsure zonos b'merkafto. So his wife had painted on his chariot two, I guess, lustful images of harlots. Kedei shiyira osan v'yischamim. In order ultimately that he should look at them and become aroused. And therefore, again, the pasuk says that we should also say, if you think about it, again, just the depravity of people to kind of publicize these type of things. So Achav's blood, when he was killed, covered these images of the zonos. So again, it's referring to the enemy archer, pulled back his bow. Now, what does litumo mean? Vayakin, he killed Achav. Rabbi Elazar Omer, lefitumo. Lefitumo means, literally means translate, innocently. What does that mean, innocently? What it means is, he wasn't aiming for Achav. You know, sometimes the archers, they would pull and they would just, fire. They fire together. They're not aiming at someone specific. So this archer just released his arrow. He wasn't aiming for the king. He wasn't aiming for anyone. So he was just shooting arrows at the opposing army. And they ended up killing Achav. Rava Amar L'tamim shtei chazionos achar shel Michayo v'achar shel Elio. So Rava says that lefitumo means to go ahead and fulfill the two prophecies of Michayo and Elio. Good. Ksiv vayikra Achav el Avadyo. So both says now that we started talking about Achav, the Gemara goes through a little bit more. Achav called Ovadyo. Now both say Achav. We don't have time to get into it now, but Achav is a fascinating figure because you see many times throughout Achav's story a flicker of holiness. Achav has an incredible desire, you see at times, to want to return to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One of the interesting things that happened is he had a very righteous servant who he maintained in his house, a man by the name of Ovadyo. So listen to this exchange is amazing. Vayikra Achav el Ovadyo asher al habayis. So Achav called Ovadyo, and Ovadyo was in charge of the household of Achav. Va'Ovadya haya yoreh Hashem ma'od. Ovadya feared God exceedingly. So the Gemara says, "My kamakra, why does the pasuk have to say that Ovadya was exceedingly fearful of God?" Amar Rabbi, supposed to listen to this. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Lei, Achav said to Ovadya, "B'Yakov ksiv nichashti v'arvechini Hashem biglalecha." So remember again, by Yaakov, when Yaakov is by Lavan. So Lavan says, "Yaakov, because you're righteous and you're in my house, oh bless you. Therefore God has blessed me." B'Yosef ksiv v'yivarech Hashem es beis hamitzvah biglal Yosef. So again, when Yosef was in the house of Potiphar, the house of Potiphar was blessed because Yosef. What do you see? You see that even evil people, when they have righteous people in their house, the house gets blessed. So Achav comes with a tain against Ovadia. Beisadahu Gavro lo hava mivrich. Achav says, listen, we've got big tsaras in the house. We're not experiencing bracha. Shema lo yirei Elokim ata. Do you understand what just happened over here? Right? Achav says, God is not showering bracha on our house. Ovadia, tell me, are you having kavanah when you're davening? Right? Tell me, the problem is obviously you, right? Because you are the token righteous guy, right? And God blesses evil people when they have the token righteous guy. So obviously you are not, get it together. You're not pulling your weight around here. Why are we getting bracha? Achav, Baskel comes down and says, Ovadia is just fine. The problem is not with your house tzaddik. The problem ultimately again is with your house. Which Shabbos, this Gemara is such a profound yesod, because so many times in life we have certain things that are in a state of disrepair, and the first place we look for the problems is elsewhere. Who's not doing their job? Who's not pulling their weight? Who's not doing what they're supposed to do? Instead of realizing, if there's a state of disrepair in my home, chances are it's not my wife and it's not my kids and it's not this and it's not this. It's me. It's me. That's Chosh Baruch Hu. You're blaming, you have the chutz to blame on Ovadia, that Ovadia is not righteous enough. Achav, what about you? Incredible. Am Rabbi Abba, Gadol Shneimar Ba'Ovadia, Yosef Mima Shneimar Ba'Avram. There's greater praise given to Ovadia than by Avram Avinu. The Il Ba'Avram lo ksiv ma'od. By Avram Avinu it doesn't say ma'od, right? It just says Yirei Elokim ata, that you fear God, but it doesn't say ma'od. Uba Ovadia ksiv ma'od. But yet Ovadia says that he's Yirei Hashem ma'od. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Mipnei ma zach Ovadia l'nevius. We'll say, why did Ovadia merit to get prophecy? What did he do? Meaning, you have to merit. What did he do to merit to get prophecy? Listen to this. So, mipnei shehechbi meya nevi mamar. Listen, you understand. Under Achav and Izevel, if Achav is bad, his wife was 10 times worse. Izevel made it her business to go ahead and kill out every single Navi Hashem. She killed out all the Naviim. Ovadia hid 100 prophets. He hid 100 Nevi'im in a cave. Shneimar, Vahi b'hachris Izevel es Navi Hashem, Vayikach Ovadio mea Nevi'im, Vayachbi'im chamishim ish b'ma'ara. So what happens? He goes ahead and Ovadio takes 100 prophets and hides them 50 per cave. Why did he hide them 50 per cave? So we'll say, why doesn't he hide all 100 in one cave? Why does he hide 50 in 2 caves? Or 50 per cave in 2 caves? So answer the mornings he learned from Yaakov Avinu. We'll say Yaakov Avinu teaches us that sometimes in dire circumstances, you have to plan for some loss. You have to plan for some loss. So you have to make a contingency plan that if there is going to be a loss, how does the family live on? Rabbi Yavo gives a much more pashut answer. He says, this is not really because he couldn't find a cave that held more than 50. He happened to find 2 caves that held 50 each. Chazon Avadio, Klamar Hashem Elokim la'Edom. So remember, then the Navi says that the Navi over here, the Gemara is quoting from the pasuk from the Navi Ovadia, that Chazon Ovadia, that Ovadia has a nevuah, has a vision. Ko Amar Hashem li Edom. So Ovadia, the Jewish prophet, becomes the mouthpiece of God to the nation of Edom, telling Edom what's going to happen to them. So the Gemara says, Maishna Ovadia la Edom. Why is Ovadia the messenger to Edom? Why is he the messenger? Yavo Ovadio hadar bein shnei harishoyim v'lo lama mima'asehem. So what happens? Ovadia, who was a righteous man, who lived between 2 evil people. Who are the 2 evil people? Achav and Izevel. He lives between 2 evil people, and yet he never learned from their deeds. V'yinove al Esav harasha, and let him deliver prophecy about the nation of Esav. Shedar ben shnei tzadikim v'lo ma'amad mima'asehem. Esav lived amongst 2 righteous people. Who are the 2 righteous people? His parents, Yitzchak and Rivka, and yet, unfortunately, he never learned from their ways. Omer Ephraim Shah, Talmidu Shavim Meir Mishra Meir. Ovadia ger Edomi haya. In fact, Ovadia was a convert from the nation of Edom. V'hainu da'amin shi. Now we understand why he was chosen. Ultimately, again, to give prophecy about Edom. V'hainu da'amin shi minei ubei abba Nezal Be Narga, that it is from the very forest that comes the handle for the axe. That's the expression. From the very forest itself comes the handle from the axe. So from the very nation of Edom comes the prophet, ultimately again, who prophesies about their demise. Vayach es Moav, vayimdodeim bechevel, hashkev osam arza. So we'll say the pasuk over here. Gemara is quoting from the pasuk in Shmuel Beis by David HaMelech. Right? David HaMelech goes ahead and wipes out the nation, or I should say, delivers a crushing blow to the nation of Moab. So why was it David HaMelech who was chosen to go ahead and wipe out the nation of Moab? This is what people say. We'll say Abba in this case means a forest. It is from the very forest itself. Lezel Be Narga comes the handle for the axe to go ahead and cut down the forest. So we'll say ultimately again, Sravdini gives a different interpretation. He says that when you have like a piece of meat, literally means the thigh of meat, when it rots from the middle. If you take a look at Rashi, Rashi says mitocha masrachas migufa umitoch uvya maschil harsirchon. That also what this ultimately means is this yesod that sometimes destruction comes from within. So the Navi who prophesies about the downfall of Edom, ultimately again is a convert from Edom. David HaMelech, who destroys the nation of Moab, himself is a descendant of Moab. Fine. So we'll say the Gemara goes right and ends off with an interesting story. Vayikach espeno habachar shenyimloch tachtov vayalehu ola alachoma. So we'll say, so the Navi over here tells a very disturbing story, again in Melachim Beis, about Mesha, the king of Moab. Mesha, the king of Moab, took his firstborn son and he offered him up as a burnt offering on the wall of the city. He sacrificed his firstborn son. I will say, child sacrifice, unfortunately, was very common. But the king of Moab essentially took his firstborn, which represented what? Which represented his heir to the throne, and he offered him up as a karban. So the Gemara says, what happens? Ravu Shmuel. So there's a machlokes as to what Mesha's intentions were. Chad amar l'shem shamayim, v'chad amar l'shem avodah zarah. One says that Mesha's intentions were l'shem shamayim, wasn't even l'shem shamayim. We'll say, obviously, what he did was wrong. But the shaila was the motivation ultimately because he was trying to do something that he thought was pleasing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or was he doing something for Avodah Zarah? So there's machlokes. One says what he actually did as a sign of homage to God, flawed, highly flawed, but nevertheless as a sign of homage to God. One says no, it was for Avodah Zarah. So according to the opinion, it says it was L'Shem Shamayim. So we'll say, according to the opinion who says that Mesha's intention was L'Shem Shamayim, the Rebbe Shalom gets very upset at Klal Yisrael. Why? Because he sees the dedication of Mesha, and that same level of dedication doesn't exist by Klal Yisrael. Now again, to be clear, the Rebbe Shalom doesn't want to sacrifice, but he sees an incredible hislavos, an incredible passion from Mesha that he doesn't see by Klal Yisrael. And therefore, again, what the dedication of the Moabite king ultimately sparks God's fury against Klal Yisrael. But according to the one who says that Mesha did this for idolatry, then why does this act spark the fury of God against Klal Yisrael? Rabbi Shimon Levi Rami Ksiv, because Rabbi Shimon Levi contrasts the two psukim. But what does it say? Ksiv ukimishpatei hagoyim asher sivosechem lo asisem. On one hand, it says, and in the ways of the nations who surround you, you have not conducted yourself. Uksiv ukimishpatei hagoyim asher sivosechem asisem. But yet it says, in accordance with the ways of the nations who surround you, you have conducted yourselves. So we'll say, which one is it? Have we conducted ourselves like the nations around us or not? To which Rabbi Shimon Levi responds, Kimitukonim shebahem lo asisem. Kimikukolim shebahem asisem. You only emulate the ways of the Goyim when they are corrupt. You do not emulate the ways of the Goyim when they are doing that which is correct. Look at Rashi. Kimiko kolim shebahem kigon meish shemelech Moav shikrev b'nolav odozara kach hayu Yisrael osim Uba shan niska lahem osa avon shahayu regilim gam heim bo. So both say apparently, according to this opinion, Klal Yisrael was also engaging in child sacrifice, and therefore, again, there is what to be learned from the Umos Sa'olam in a positive way. Yet you fail to learn those lessons the Navi tells us. All you seem to take from the nations of the world is the morally bankrupt, negative behavior that you emulate from them. Vayisu me'ala vayishuvu la'aretz. So we'll say ultimately again, vayis, little, bless you. Vayisu right, so this is the same pasuk. After Mesha goes in and kills his son, vayisu me'ala, they literally ascended from they left. Vayishuvu la'aretz, they returned to the land. Rabbi Chanina bar Papa, ba'osa shah yardu rishen she'yisrael l'madrega tachtona. At this point, he's telling us that Klal Yisrael ascended to such a low point of negative spiritual activity. Fine, so we'll say the parak ends off, interestingly enough, in a totally unrelated way. V'hana'ara yifa'ad ma'od. And this is talking about over here, Avishag Hashunamis. Remember again at the end, this is at the end of Malachim Aleph, David HaMelech is old. So the kingdom hires a nurse for him, a young woman, a beautiful woman by the name of Avishag Hashunamis. We spoke about her before, if you remember again. We spoke on her early in the Masechta. This is the episode we saw where she wanted to marry David HaMelech. David HaMelech did not want to marry her. So Avishag Hashunamis, so the Gemara says, V'hanara yifa'ad ma'od. And the pasuk says that she was exceedingly beautiful. Well, let's listen to how this ends. Rabbi Chanina bar Papa, Adayin lo egia lechatzi yofi shel Sarah. As beautiful as she was, she did not measure up to even half of the beauty of Sarah Imenu. How do we know that? D'chsiv ad ma'od. V'lo ma'od bichlal. So we'll say, so beautifully, it says that she was yafa ad ma'od. So I said, so the way normally darshan is ad ma'od means exceedingly beautiful. The Gemara's darshaning it is, she was beautiful ad ma'od. But up until, we have ad v'lo ad bichlal, up until, but not including exceedingly beautiful. Because ultimately, again, who does that beauty belong to? Ultimately, again, that was the beauty of Sarah Imenu, this is the beauty of the Emos, the beauty of our matriarchs. Let's say, Hadjun Allah Echad Dinei Mamanis. Shkoyach, Mazel Tov, Emirtz Hashem, tomorrow, B'Shat Tov, Mitzachas, we begin the new parak, Yeshikoyach.